We've heard the saying, do as I say, not as I do. But there's also another saying that says, your actions speak louder than your words. I was thinking today about some of the life lessons I've learned and been taught many of them in my 51 years on this earth. But my dad, I would say, probably taught me the most and still teaches me to this day. My father's a pastor, has been a pastor my whole life. And my dad didn't just tell me what to do, but my dad always was an example. He showed me by his actions. I just want to share something with you today, and hopefully that helps somebody. I was about 12 years old. My dad pastored in Clarksville, Arkansas, and we had purchased a piece of property there, and they had built a building there on about a 5-6 acre plot in Clarksville. And when you pulled into the church parking lot, there was a subdivision that went down the whole right side, and the back end of each house was facing the side of the church, and they had put a solid chain link fence all the way up, separating the backs of those homes from the side of the church. Each person was responsible for a little patch of grass that went up along the back end of their house. So you can imagine what it looked like. There was a patch cut, a not patch, patch cut. And there was a patch about this big on this side of the fence towards the church, and it had a big ditch line, and then the church. My dad is very meticulous when it comes to the house of God. He's always just, son, you got to put your best foot forward. So when I was about 12, we'd go on Saturdays and we'd cut the grass. And my dad would meticulously trim along that fence line all the way up, and he would cut the grass. And one Saturday, I come around from the back of the church, and there's my dad backed up against the truck, and there's this guy looking up at him, and he's just poking him in the chest. And I heard him raising his voice at my dad, and I walked up in time to hear the guy say, listen, preacher, if I ever catch you on my property again, I'm going to do this to you. I'm going to beat you. Just don't you ever get on my property. And every time he would say something hateful, my dad would give him a soft answer. He would respond in kindness. And I in my mind, why would I ever think that he would do this? But I was waiting to remember my big old dad just to put that guy's teeth down his throat. But he didn't. And it makes me think of, he used to teach me a scripture in Proverbs that said, a soft answer turns away wrath. And I got to see it in action. And the more the man became furious, the more he went at my dad would give him a soft answer. He would say things. And I watched the situation begin to diffuse. When he got done, he walked away. And of course, we finished the church grass. And I remember the ride home. I'll never forget it. I was silent. And my dad said, hey, bud, I know what you're thinking. Dad knows what you're thinking. He said, you probably think Dad's a wimp. You know, my dad's he's soft. He should have just beat the tar out of that guy. But he said, son, listen to me. Take the high road in every situation. He said, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. Always take the high road. He said, because if you do, you're going to come out on top. It may not look like it right away, but eventually you're going to end up out on top. And he said, plus, son, you never know what people are going through and what they're dealing with in their life. I remember, and I don't want to say, maybe a week, 2 weeks later, I come home from school one day and my dad was there and he said, hey, bud, I want to talk to you. He said, you remember a week or two ago, was cutting the grass, a young man came over and making the threats. And I said, yes, sir. He said, well, I was at the church today, and he said, I was praying and I was studying, and he said, and I heard the doors of the church rocking and just banging. He said, so I stick my head out of my office and I look, and he said, there's that guy at the glass doors just rocking the whole front of the glass on the complex. And he said, I thought, oh God, here we go. He said, so I unlocked the door and I stepped back, and the gentleman stepped in, he stuck his hand out. And he said, I reached out and shook his hand. He said, he had big old tears streaming down his face. He said, he looked at me and said, Pastor, I owe you an apology. He said, I want to apologize for the way I treated you and spoke to you last week when I came over here while you were cutting grass. He said, I had no right to ever come over here and talk to you like that, let alone in front of your son. He said, there's no excuse, but let me share with you. He said, I had just come home and found my wife and my best friend together. And he said, I found out that it had been going on for a while and that they were leaving together. He said, I looked out and saw you, and he said, of course, I came out and I took my pain and my hurt out on you, and I apologize. He said, I beg your forgiveness. And he said, Dad said that he said, you know, Pastor, he said, I never had much use for churches and Christians, and he said, preachers of all things. He said, I thought you all alike. He said, but you know, you had every right to put my teeth down the back of my throat. You could have said the most horrible things back to me. He said, but you responded in kindness. Every time you responded in kindness. And he said, sir, what you did is you have shown me what a true man of God looks like. You've shown me what a Christian looks like. I've thought of that many times in my life. My dad teaching me lessons, and I want to say this to you today. It doesn't matter what the situation is. Take the high road. Somebody cut you off today. Take the high road. Somebody says something to you, and our first reaction is to respond with hatefulness. Remember, a soft answer turns away wrath. It don't make you soft. It takes a real man. It takes a real man to respond with kindness. It takes a real woman to be kind in all situations. I haven't always done it my whole life, but I'm going to tell you something. When you do it, you remember this. There's going to come a point in your life when you're having a bad day and something's not going right, and maybe disaster or something horrible has happened, and you lash out at somebody. I pray to God that they respond to you by taking the high road. Listen, pay it forward today. Be kind. Give a soft word. Be kind to people. And if you have children, I just want to say this. If you get nothing out of what I said today, just get this. Your children are not hearing a word you're saying, but they're watching all of your actions. Remember, your actions speak louder than your words. Lead your life by example. Touch somebody's life today. Put a smile on somebody's face. And that is a view from the Ferris side of things. Have a great day.